Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Rebecca Liddon of Planet Earth. And
Andy from I have no idea where I'm from.
we're just floating around, really trying to make it through the day.
That's right.
And I just whipped this phone out here and said, we're doing this. And you know, Andy just does whatever I tell him to do.
Full beard.
Get over here. And
Focus.
I was having a discussion yesterday with a couple of mothers and the train.
Yeah. Then what happened?
I was actually talking to them about our conversation we had yesterday. Not the details.
Okay.
Not the details.
Okay.
But just the general willingness to sit down and really show up for difficult conversations. You and I have talked about conversations several times. Every video that we make is about our communication.
Mm-hmm.
But this wasn't about our parenting, it was about our relationship. And I was expressing gratitude and admiration and love for you to these people, how you show up to hard conversations. And that's how we evolve together. That's how we grow. That's how we get reconnected after periods of disconnect.
Yeah.
And contemplating how the harmony or flow or connection of you and I, how that seeps into the family and impacts our children very unconsciously. And I would call it like we set the pulse for the family's nervous system, the quality of this relationship. And I have a joke that I tell the video every time I make a video about working with parents, where 95% of the time it's actually marriage counseling or it's couples counseling. It's not parenting, it's the relationship with your co-parent or your partner, and how that is such a huge, of course, obviously, it's a huge factor in our own personal wellness and our own personal parenting practice. And you know, I could gush about you and ask you a bunch of questions. And I was asked by a woman yesterday, well, what happens if the other parent does not show up to the conversation, or you are aware of the impact of your relationship on the family nervous system or with the children, but the labor is one-sided? And I said, I have no idea. That's why I don't work as a couples counselor or a marriage counselor. I genuinely don't know, and that's probably the scariest place for me as a coach, is like, if you're not in harmony with your partner, you're not on the same page, I don't know if I'm the right fit for you, because I've never lived that. I have no idea what that's like, and I don't ever want to know what that's like.
Yeah, well, we certainly have times where, I mean, there's always that undercurrent of connection, but on the surface, we, I think, also allow ourselves to be honest about how we're feeling about something, and how there are moments where I'm not feeling connected to you based on the reaction that I'm having inside my body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's an undercurrent that stays connected.
So it's attachment is what you're talking about. There's attachment, which is the umbilical cord. And then there's conflict at the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. So differentiating what it is it conflict on the surface? is there connection below or underneath?
Well, that's what we have to check in on and be brave enough to really ask.
Because
like,
there's been moments that I've been scared out of my mind and thinking that that connection has been lost,
yeah.
or just in my body I feel like it's really scared.
Mm.
It's not until after I stay with what I'm feeling and we come full circle that I realize that we're still connected.
So we complete a stress cycle. That's what that's called.
Okay.
And a lot of people live in the disconnect, stress space, but don't ever reconnect and say, like, I'm really scared. I'm
Yeah.
feeling so disconnected from you, and I'm not sure if it's because we're out of sync lately, or we're working through these things, or like really if this is.
Yeah, there's a moment where you think you're gonna die, or you think you're gonna, big truck. I mean, I feel things intensely in my body to where I feel like, something terrible is gonna happen, or I'm not gonna get through this. But it is in those tiny steps forward and just continuing to move and sit in that uncomfortable space that things begin to I begin to move through it, or we begin to move through it. But that is because we've had lots of conversations like that. We've dipped our toes into things that are really hard, and then we've also, after dipping our toes and walking in, rolling up our pants and walking in the current, we've also, after having done that, we've just jumped in several times too. Right?
Right.
I have something to tell you about, or I have something. Can I ask you a question, Andy? Or whatever it is that I'm like.
Am I the one who's instigating these things? Yes, it's true, I am.
Well, you
So we have an age difference. I'm 32 and you're 43. Let's talk about it.
Okay, sure. I'm 43.
I'm 32.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that one.
No, I'm not. We don't have to go there. What I mean to say is that we've talked about this before, how I'm going through my 30s right now, and I'm like exploring all these different aspects of my identity. I'm beginning a career.
Sure.
I'm blossoming and expanding, and you're in a place right now where you did that in your 30s. You had your ideal job, you had your dream career, you had exploring aspects of your identity and letting go and la 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 la, and now you're in a totally different milestone phase than me, and that is contributing at times to, it's not the only thing, but just the different phases of life right now that we're in contributes to sometimes not being in flow and harmony because we're on separate journeys.
Right. And it also helps me though too at the same time to say, like, I know what that's like. I know what it's like when you have found your path, or something that is really, you've decided to show up for it, and it's got all kinds of windows and doors for you to open and go through, and just, it's almost like when you're a teenager and you feel like you're invincible, like, I can do anything, or I have this, I need
never
to
felt like
harness
that.
it. Well, okay, well, it has something to do with, I think, hormones and things like that.
Okay. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, if you're in a space where you have just found like a point in your life where
I've just found confidence.
Yeah, you feel like you're tapped in.
Yeah.
You tapped into what could possibly be one of your purposes in life, enough so that you want to share it with the world, obviously. And there's a tremendous amount of energy in that.
Yeah.
So I see that, I get that, I understand that, and that makes you kind of, float off the ground a few inches at times,
Yeah.
And I was there when I launched myself and found my myself in a place of huge expansion and self-cultivation, and opening up or co-facilitating a healing arts studio, and taking workshops and teaching, people, and learning from anything that came into my life. Oh, this is coming into my life. What does it mean? Oh my gosh, like giving that thing, whatever it is, all that I had, all of my attention to see what can it do? How can I integrate it?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to keep this? I don't know. But I'm gonna figure out what's happening with that thing. It's alive and I'm alive. So I understand that phase in your life where you've got enough knowledge and experiential knowledge or intelligence about life to really start getting the pedals moving. And so I get that, and I'm in a place where I'm kind of resting. Like I just got out of that phase. Whether it has to do with age or not, I don't know, but more so cycles. Sometimes our cycles are moving together. Sometimes they're doing this. We just, like I was talking the other day, sometimes, I had felt like I'm in kind of like a death cycle.
Yeah.
And you're in a rebirth cycle. You've recently kind of just been reborn into this huge opportunity over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when mine kind of closed up. And I say death, but it was an ending of a cycle. And so I'm in introspective and trying to figure out how much of myself up until this point in my life do I need to put to rest, or just not carry with me, so that I can have a fertile ground to plant the seed of what the next 10 years of my life is going to be like. Which right now in my current situation looks like being a stay-at-home dad and not working, which is really weird. Which is what I've been doing for the last, since I was 14 years old. So I'm just like in this resting hibernation, and you're in this, I've just been reborn, anything is possible. Or maybe not anything is possible, but just there's this huge potential and capacity that you've recognized.
The work that I do is supporting people to decondition. So I've been actively doing that for the last 12 years. And after releasing and shedding, while you were in your expansion, I was in my death cycle.
Yeah, for sure.
I had been in a deeply introspective, healing, stay-at-home parent in my den, hibernating, releasing and cutting shit out of my psyche for 6 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then when Heron was 9 months old, I had a calling.
Mm-hmm.
So for the past, definitely 4 years now, almost 4 years, I've been in a, what am I going to do with all of the space that I've created from the healing work I've done and the introspective work that I've done?
Yeah. We can be in two different places, and that's sometimes really helpful.
Yeah,
Perspective-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also be really challenging to say, like, I feel...
You were saying your need for predictability and consistency, or stability and security and safety, and my needs right now are exploration and discovery and adventure and understanding and spontaneity, and those are opposites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure. So that makes it not fun at times.
But the point of this conversation was you and I are both coming to the table with self-awareness.
Yeah.
the ability-ish to communicate what's going on in our world, the practice of being able to listen to each other's process without reacting, defending, taking it personally. I've come a long way in my ability to listen. It's not perfect. I still fuck up when you're being vulnerable with me and I'm like, no, or I'll get defensive. But
Yeah, I walked off the porch the other day and picked up a large log over my head and threw it into the yard.
I was actually really proud of you for that, because
Yeah,
it
I
was
needed
better
that.
than you did
Yeah.
something with the energy that you were having.
Mhm.
And then you came back to the table and
And
you're
sat
like,
down.
okay, I'm ready to keep going.
Yeah. Give me a second. I need to
go throw this
I need
log.
to either break every window in my car, which I didn't want to do that, or I'll just pick up something really heavy over my head and throw it.
Yeah, we had a really hard conversation yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, there's a part of my conscious experience as a human being that says, "No, Andy, don't do that."
It's called
Even
the
in those
prefrontal.
moments. My prefrontal is intact.
I haven't destroyed it yet.
So yeah, in hindsight, it's really, I feel, it's really, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I can move that energy and then come back to the table literally and sit down and say,
Yeah.
okay, what
And
else? Tell me what else? What's the next layer? Or, you know.
My inner experience is more like shut down and run and hide and get away. And I've learned how to be like, that's not what we're going to do right now, Rebecca. I know that you're feeling really scared and that you want to run away and hide and get as far away from this as you possibly can. I go to a lot of like giving up, and I've cultivated the perseverance in our conversations to not give up and to trust that we're going to get through this. But I'm returning to our original intention, which was reflection or anything that you could speak to. Again, I speak mostly to women, so I have a bias here or mothers, where they're very aware that the quality of and the connection of the co-parenting relationship impacts the children. And my question isn't even like how to have a perfect relationship, because this is even
That
people
doesn't
who are not
exist.
married or who don't live together, or there maybe is no, there's lots of people in our lives who are co-parenting out of absolute obligation and speaking as little as possible to that other person. That's not the dynamic I'm talking about. Yeah, this is so befuddling to me. I don't even know how to ask you a question.
Start small. Something
I mean, the question was just like, Rebecca, what do you do when the other person doesn't show up?
Well, that,
Oh. What should
Well,
we have for dinner?
maybe, I think you realize that
Yeah.
there has to be a willingness on both sides. If there's not a willingness, then you're not to the point of having a conversation yet. So, you don't make somebody do something.
No.
You encourage, or you try to, maybe you could start very, very small and notice when they shut down, or when that door begins to close.
What about even just talking about, here's what gets in the way of us even having conversations? What if we talked about that?
I think that could cause someone to go into a defensive mode.
Well, what can you do that doesn't cause someone to go into a defensive mode?
Start with something very, very safe.
Like what?
What would you like to have for breakfast? Is that ridiculous?
You know that I have a really hard time answering that question. Anybody, you try
Can
to
you
tell
tell
me
me
like,
what
what
you
do you
want
want
for
for dinner?
breakfast?
I'm like, dude.
Tell me what you liked about that movie.
I'll tell you what I liked about that movie.
Okay, great.
The cinematography was excellent.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, do you want to ask me a question? You want to ask me what I liked about that movie?
Oh,
Remember how we do that? We ask questions, we play games.
I
We
love
say-
games.
Tell me, Andy, if you could move anywhere in the whole world, where would it be? If you could go on vacation anywhere, blah, blah, blah. And I answer the question, and sometimes I forget to ask you that same
So
question.
we play
you say, yeah, you
games?
say, now you ask me that question.
Okay.
And that's a playful way of saying like, oh yeah, okay, well, how do you feel about that? Now we're talking about something that's probably not,
Wait, are you
loaded or
saying that
triggered,
people
but-
should cultivate a joyful, playful
Conversation
in
dynamic?
their relationship in order to set the foundation for more difficult conversations in their relationship?
yeah.
What?
What kind of car? Tell me about that car you just bought.
No.
Why is it that you like that car?
1969 Mustang.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
What is it about that car that you
yeah.
like? Oh, you want me to talk about my car? Okay. Well, let me tell you. You know, we've been there. You know, keep it light. But what you're doing, I think, in my personal opinion,
And then
is
you
you're
drop a bomb.
practicing.
That's my
No,
style.
you don't drop the bomb until like a month or so down the road.
Yeah, you gotta really
Get
plant the seed.
Get used to that exchange. Get used to having the fun conversation that goes back and forth, where you get to share, you get to listen. You know, they're sharing, they're listening.
Okay.
And then they can possibly go into, you know, more challenging conversations, but you don't go from 0 to 60, you know, like that. You know, you don't try to transport them to where you are, even if you think that you're in a place that's not asking a big question or a big ask. To them, it might be a quantum leap. So start really, really, really small. And if they're shutting down, go smaller. If they're shutting down still, go smaller. Maybe you're not talking to them directly and asking them what's on your mind, but maybe you just get to the point where they can sit with someone else, like a health professional perhaps, and have conversations about what their feelings are, you know? I mean, I know it was easier for me after talking with my mental health counselor or provider about some challenging things. After I did that, I felt more comfortable and more open.
Maybe
to
you had clarity.
Going deeper with you.
Is that
you know?
what helped?
Yeah, it's clarity, it's practice, it's
Mm.
you know, I can speak my feelings in my mind to someone I don't know or who doesn't know you.
Yeah.
But to sit in front of you and try to access that can be really scary.
Okay. Mhm.
I'm not saying that's where I'm at right now, but I might be there tomorrow, or maybe that's where I was, you know, a year ago.
Yeah.
I never really know, but
I really like your idea.
it's just an idea. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
No,
but I
that-
think it's the
yeah.
conversation. Practice the conversation.
Okay.
Practice listening and answering questions. Even if it's like, what was your favorite cereal growing up?
You know what?
You know?
Can I interrupt you?
What's up?
What we practice in our coaching is something called pendulation. We pendulate from the pleasurable to the displeasurable, and every time you swing, you're building tolerance and capacity. So it's not even going to the arena and talking about the snakes that you need to slay, but it's more of a like, share with me one of your favorite memories of your childhood, or share with me a really yucky memory from your childhood. So it can be playful and joyful, but it's also practicing having tender, more uncomfortable, emotional discussions outside of the relationship dynamic, but just like playing around and like holding that
Yeah.
space and listening and reflecting. And
Yeah, another thing that comes up for me when I'm listening to you say that is knowing their love language, or or however you want to frame that. Like, there are times when you're like, I'll share something and you'll just kind of,
I know that you need a nice pet.
yeah, you know, like, or you just audibly say, like, oh,
You're the most beautiful human being I've ever seen in my whole life.
you know, that helps, you know.
Yeah, you
And maybe
gotta
not
fill the
everybody
cup.
wants that, but you know, maybe Or maybe you can just, maybe it's saying like, thank you, like thank you for sharing that. Maybe it starts with that. Or maybe it just starts with you holding their hand while they're explaining it. Or
Yeah.
maybe they like to hear like, I'm proud of you for sharing that with me, or I feel grateful. You know, there could
I
be a
want to
word,
hear,
you know?
I understand.
I understand.
When you say, I understand, Rebecca.
Or that makes sense.
Yeah, just specifically,
Yeah.
I understand.
So I think
Or,
everybody has that.
I believe you. I
Uh,
trust you.
Right.
You say, I trust you. I know that you are, what you say, like, conscious.
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah,
you're
I know
not
you're
just,
not just. I know you're. Yeah, I know you have a sense of yourself. I know you're conscious when you're making these decisions or thinking about these things. You're not just.
yeah, like irresponsible or
Yeah.
mindless or terrible person, but like,
You're not being. I know that you're not being reckless or just not thinking about these things.
yeah.
This is a conscious exploration. There's something behind it that's not. That feels different. So yeah, I think there can be a certain language that helps your partner feel safe or acknowledged for sharing, even if it's just a little bit. That will help be a building block. Or maybe it's some kind of touch, like holding their hand, or giving them a hug, afterwards. I mean, basic, simple stuff. Like I'm not a mental health professional
Yeah.
yet. I just try to be an honest human being, and so that's where this stuff is coming from. That place. Just keep it really simple and see what works and see what allows them to blossom just a little bit further, open just a little bit further. And don't push it, don't stretch it. It's like a muscle, you don't want to just walk down the road and say, okay, I'm good, and then just go into a sprint, and then realize that their reality is totally different than yours. Every single human being on this planet has a different reality than you or from anybody else. So it's very unique. So what's fast to you might be slow to somebody else. What seems like slow to you and you're like, come on, go deeper, like this is
Hurry up.
It could be you could be moving at light speed for them, So just try to take a moment and try to feel into what is the pace you say, what's the pace of permission, or if you can get them to vocalize that or to communicate in some way, And are we going too fast? Maybe you say that verbally, or maybe you just check in energetically, like I see him fidgeting, or he's doing that thing again, or he's if I'm walking around the house doing this,
I know that it's going too fast for you. Just like a parent who sees their kid, it's like, this is beyond my tolerance to be able to cope.
Yeah, it's like, Andy, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't know what I'm doing. I just start grabbing at my face, and that's when I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. And you're like, go on, go to the gym, go check the mailbox. It's great. I mean, it's not great. It's actually really, really hard a lot of the times, but you get through it and you realize that. No.
I'm kidding. God. Andy is sober.
I'm the soberest person.
He's the soberest person I've ever met.
That's another video. My battery's getting low on my computer phone.
So anyway, Andy, what's your favorite movie?
Currently? Well, we watched Dune last night, which was cool. I've already seen it. What's my favorite movie? Gosh, I used to really love the movie Jaws growing up. something fascinating about that movie. I don't know what the psychology is behind it, but I'm a sucker for a good, hero's journey
Yeah.
where there's someone who has this incredible gift, but they don't know how to harness it, and then it's used in a backwards or upside down way, and
Harry
it
Potter.
ruins their life, and then they go off and they become a hermit and grow a beard and a long mustache or
So
whatever.
your memoir.
And then they re-emerge after some, incredibly humbling experience or, journey into the cave and into the darkness, and they realize, I was so close, but I was just off just a little bit, that's what life is about. Like, I feel like I'm doing this right, but I'm off just a few ticks.
Boom, boom.
So you just turn
Boom,
the
boom.
dial a couple times, and then you get it right. And then until 6 months down the road, then you feel like, oh wait a minute, I thought I had it right, and then you're like, oh yeah, I gotta go 4 clicks back that way. Sometimes you don't need to spin the whole dial. I mean, sometimes you do. That's what I feel like some days, but
Andy does not need drugs.
no, absolutely not.
Okay, my call's
I
probably
could go
starting
into outer
in
space
5
at any
minutes.
moment. Oh yeah, you have work to do. I have kids to tend to.
Where are our kids?
Safe. Somewhere safe.